Yeah, so today we are going to talk about identifying performance bottlenecks with Azure Load Testing. And let's see how to do that. So, first of all, why is it required, right? Azure Load Testing helps you identify performance bottlenecks, but why is it required for you to identify these performance bottlenecks? So, as we know, performance issues are very performance issues result in a lot of revenue losses. Like, for example, as you can see, Amazon says that it has lost almost $100 million in revenue in just 1 hour of downtime in the Amazon Prime Day sale. And we've seen a lot of examples where by having some performance issues when there's a lot of load during peak season, for example, a Black Friday sale or holiday shopping season, a lot of customers face a lot of issues if there's not enough performance and if their websites cannot handle the load that is required at these peak events. So performance testing is very important for you to make sure that you're able to give your customers the right experience that they would want from you. Uh, so Azure load testing helps you generate high scale load and also identify performance bottlenecks. Uh, so let's see how Azure load testing and what are the key value propositions that Azure load testing offers and how you can use it to load test your applications. Um, so you can prepare your application for the production environment and make sure it is able to handle the high scale load with ease. So you can get started with Azure load testing with no code experience, and you can just start running tests and test your application. And you can also use your existing JMeter script. Now, Apache JMeter is a widely used open source tool which you can use to load test your application. So you can only just run your load testing scripts, which are the JMeter scripts on Azure load testing, and it runs with ease. You don't have to manage any infrastructure. All of that is taken care by Azure load testing. We provision all the VMs that are required for you to generate the high scale load, and you don't have to worry about provisioning, deprovisioning, or managing any of the infrastructure. You can optimize your performance at scale by looking at all the analytics and metrics that are provided to you by the service. So you get a single view of both the client side and the server side metrics in a dashboard, and you can very easily correlate what happened and during the test and what went wrong for you to identify if there are any issues that you could resolve. While we talk about load testing for a very specific event during a peak season, it's also important to catch these performance issues very early in the development lifecycle. So, leveraging the shift left strategy, it's important that if you identify these even before the issues go into your production, that's the best way where you can catch these performance issues and avoid any regression. So it's good that you are able to also integrate Azure load testing into your CI/CD workflows and make sure that the code that goes into your production environment is the quality that you want it to be. So how do you do this in Azure load testing, right? So you can generate high scale load very easily without having to manage any infrastructure. So you can just provide your JMeter scripts or just provide a URL for a URL based test. And this engines are provisioned by Azure load testing. And these engines are used to generate load to your application. Now, your application might be deployed anywhere. It could be on-prem, it could be in any other cloud, or it could be on Azure as well. If it is on Azure, then you get a very a comprehensive dashboard with all the server side metrics as well. So what we do is if, for example, your application is on app service or Kubernetes and you have a database, you have a storage account, we pull all the server-side metrics from Azure Monitor for these application components, and we provide you a single view dashboard for all the server-side metrics as well as the client-side metrics that JMeter provides. That makes it very easy for you to correlate and identify if there was any performance issues when the load increased, or if there was any breakpoint that your application reached. It's very easy for you to test if your application is on Azure. So you get this frictionless testing and a single view of your metrics. Uh, so talking about metrics, you get deep, actionable insights and recommendations. You would be, after the test, you would be able to identify which part of your application is a bottleneck and is causing any performance issues. You can go and make sure that you, for example, increase the SKU or increase the course if it's a VM, and make sure that it's able to handle the load that you expect it to experience, right? So you can also compare your test across time and see how, if there was any regression, how your performance changed over time in different test runs. Coming to the CI/CD integration, so you can we have integrations with GitHub and Azure pipelines. You will be able to just add a small task in your workflow, existing workflows, and make sure that you can set some pass or fail criteria. Based on the pass or fail criteria, the pipeline or the workflow is passed or failed, and this makes sure that you can take some action based on the results of the load test. For example, if your load test did not meet your expectations or the thresholds that you have set, then you can fail the pipeline and make sure that you don't promote this code into production. You only promote when it meets your performance expectation. So that automation can be done by integrating into a CI/CD workflow. Let's take a look at a demo of Azure Load Testing and how you can do this in Azure portal. So today I'm going to demo a .NET podcast application. So this is a simple .NET podcast website which you can explore. There are a bunch of podcasts here. You can go and listen to podcasts. So we are going to load test this application today. So getting started with Azure load testing is really simple. You can just give the URL. For example, since this is a website, I can just say, create a quick test. I can give the URL of the website. I can say how many concurrent users I expect. For example, if I say I want to test for 50 concurrent users and I want to test for 120 seconds, I can give a ramp up time for the load to ramp up gradually, and I can just say run test. So that's how easy it is to get started with Azure load testing. While this is very good for you to get started, experience how Azure load testing works, you can really unlock the potential of the service when you have an existing JMeter script. I have also prepared a JMeter script for this website. So looking at the JMeter script, this is what the test script looks like for this website. So as you can see, I'm testing 4 different pages. I'm testing the podcast page, the home page, the discover page, and the search page. I can add requests for each of these and load test all of these during my test. Now I can also add a CSV data set configuration. So basically I can provide input data to my request from a CSV file. So this makes sure that you can have a input data configured and you can provide that at runtime to the request. While that is how I can provide data, I also can write some custom code which can extend the existing functionality of JMeter. So here, for example, I have written a custom function, which is and basically a function which grabs the environment variable. If it is present, if it is not present, it uses a default value. So for my here, I have given a environment variable for the URL of the uh, page that I want to test. And so this function is a custom function that I've written. Um, and I can use the custom function as well. So any custom code as well can be used with JMeter and Azure Load Testing. So this is what the test plan looks like. Now let's see how you can run this test plan in Azure Load Testing. So you can just say upload a JMeter script. So you can create a test by uploading your existing JMeter script. So we will name this as .NET podcast JMeter test. And I go to test plan. Now this is where I upload all the files that I require for my test to run. So I say select, and I have my JMeter script. So this is the JMeter script that we just saw. I say upload, but then we had bunch of other things as well that we had configured. Since we saw we had configured a CSV input file, I can also select the CSV input file here. And when I select a CSV input file, I can also choose to split these between engines. Now, if I have multiple engines that I want to scale out and generate high scale load, that I can always split the CSV files into different into these engines so that each engine has a unique row. This is helpful. For example, if you have a login scenario, then you don't want credentials to be repeated across different engines. So you ideally would want to split your CSV among these different engines that you are using to generate load. Um, we also saw custom function. Now, custom function in JMeter can be written and uploaded as a jar file. So I have written my jar file and I can just say upload here. And when the script runs, then this jar file is used to execute the custom function. Um, so I have uploaded all the files that I need for my test. So going ahead, I can now, yeah, I can just create a test, but let me configure some more additional parameters. So we saw a custom function which grabs the environment variable. So I'd like to set my environment variable. Now I want to set the environment variable to um, for the web app, which is the URL of the test website that I'm testing. So we saw the .NET podcast uh, website, and this is a publicly accessible website. But I have a version of it which I've deployed, and this version is not publicly accessible. So I have configured access restrictions on this website. So you can only access this from a virtual network. So let's see how to do this private endpoint testing using Azure Load Testing. So, so I will grab this and I'll say, yeah, so I say this is my .NET podcast, which is a private network, private endpoint. So I'm going to load test this private endpoint now instead of the publicly accessible one. So I provide this as the web app URL. And now I can also provide secrets. Secrets are if there are any sensitive parameters that you want to provide. For example, if there are any login credentials, there's any authentication token, you can always provide that in a secure manner by storing the key, the secret in a key vault and just providing the secret identifier here. Since I don't have any secrets in my test, I'm going to skip this. Coming to certificates, now some websites require you to have client-side certificate for authentication. My website requires a certificate, so I'm just going to give the certificate name. Similar to the secrets, the certificates also are stored in Azure Key Vault, and they are securely fetched and provided to the JMeter engine when the test is run. So I can provide my certificates as well here. Now coming to load. Load is where you can actually uh, scale out and basically generate very high scale load. So as you can see, you can generate, you can provision from 1 to 45 engines, and each engine uh, will multiply the number of threads that you have mentioned in your JMeter script. For example, if I have said mentioned 100 threads in my JMeter script, you can multiply that. For example, I say 5 engines, then it multiplies across these 5 engines, and I get 500 virtual users running requesting running requests on my application. So that's the load that I'll be able to generate using this engine. So this is the beauty of having it in Azure Load Testing, where you can just scale out just by one click, and you don't need to manage all these 5 engines that you need to generate the load that you want. So it's as simple as selecting how many engines you want here, and Azure Load Testing takes care of provisioning, deprovisioning, and managing these engines for you. So once I select the number of engines, now remember we said it's a private network. So we can select if it is a private or a public network. So I have a private endpoint that I'm testing, so I can always select private, and I select the virtual network, which is which has access to the to my application. So this is the demo podcast VNet, which has access to the website that we saw. And then I select the subnet, which is configured for access to the application. So it's as simple as selecting the VNet and the subnet here, and you would be able to test a private endpoint as well. Coming to the test criteria. Now, I might have some performance expectations for the application that I'm testing. For example, I might say that for my application, I don't want the response time, the average response time, to be greater than, say, 10 milliseconds, right? So this is where you can define your test criteria. So you have a bunch of metrics that you can select from. Say, for example, I say my response time, and you can select if it's average, minimum, maximum, or any of the percentiles. I'll say average. If it is greater than, say, 1,000 milliseconds, then I won't like to fail. Now you can also specify this for a specific request. As you can see that I have 4 requests in my JMeter script. And I want to set this for my podcast page. So you can always select which request you want to set this test criteria for. And similarly, you can do that for any of the test requests that you have, and for any of the metrics that you want to do. What happens at the end of the test is, once the test run completes, we evaluate if this criteria is true, and if it is true, then it would fail your test, giving the test result as failed. This means that you can go and look into what failed and why it failed. This also helps in an automation scenario where you would, if, for example, if you have integrated in a CI/CD pipeline, then you can always fail the pipeline and make sure that you take proper action before you deploy your code into production. Coming to monitoring, now this is where if your application is hosted on Azure, you can view the server-side metrics for your application. So I have a demo podcast application, so I would just say I'd select the resource group, which has all my applications. So I have app service, storage account, and I have SQL DB. So I select all of these, and that's it. this is all that you have to do for you to be able to view the server side metrics of how your application performed during the test. So once you have all of this, you can go ahead and create a test. And once the test is created, the test run starts as well. For this demo purpose, I'll take you through a test that I ran some time back. So this is the same test that we have configured just now. So this is a test run. As you can see, this test run ran with 5 engine instances, and the test result says failed. The test status is completed, so it is done. Now you can see that I have statistics for how my application performed during the test. This was a total load that was generated. Those were the total requests. It ran for 6 odd minutes, and the response time for the 98th percentile was 96.61 seconds. The close to 4 or 5% error rate, and this was the throughput of my application. Now, I had set certain test criteria while configuring. As you can see, I said the response time, average response time shouldn't be greater than, this is my threshold, which is 10,000 for the podcast page. The actual value was quite more than that, and we'll look at why this was so high. So we can see that this criteria did not pass, and the other one was error percentage for the um, aggregate requests, and this was below what my threshold was, so this passed. As since one of these has failed, the test result has failed as well. So this helps me identify that there was something wrong, and maybe I'd have to go and dig deeper into what went wrong. So let's try to understand what might have gone wrong. As you can see, this was the load that was generated. The response time also kept on increasing as the load increased. At certain point, there started errors we were reported, and we can see which error type. These are 500 errors, so there was something wrong in the application side. And at a certain point, as you can see, when the load really ramped up to the highest peak, we also see that the throughput really reduced. So my application was not able to handle that many requests. So I can go now and look at the server side metrics for the components that I had configured. As you can see, uh, the app service, this is my app service plan. This all looks fine. The requests, I can see the CPU percentage is low, the memory was low. So it doesn't look like my app service was a bottleneck. So let's look at my DB. So I had a DB SQL Server database for my application. And as you can see, at certain point, as the load increased, my SQL Server database CPU percentage really shot shot up, and as you can see, it was 182, more than like 150, 184%. So this is something that is not really a good sign. So maybe this could be an issue. As you can see, there was not much other issues with my say storage as well. So this is how I can identify that maybe there was an issue with my SQL DB, and I can go and look into what can be done. Should I increase the cores, number of cores? Should I upgrade my SKU? And I can take action based on this. So this really helps me identify where exactly which component is creating the bottleneck, and I'll be able to fix that, and I can run a test again and see if that solves the issue, and I'm able to get a much better response time and throughput for the load that I'm expecting my application to experience. So in this way, you can test your application, identify where exactly which app component is causing the issue, and you can identify exactly what is the bottleneck, and you can fix that and make sure your application is able to handle the load that you want it to. So yeah, here I'm switching back to the deck. Here, these are some resources that you can take a look at. Uh, so you have the product page for Azure Load Testing. We have documentation with a lot of how-tos, tutorials that you can refer to. We have blogs that we regularly publish with scenarios that would be interesting for you to see if that is your requirement and use those scenarios as well. And we have a feedback forum. We'd be happy to listen to what you feel. If you have any issues, concerns, any feature requests as well, we'd be happy to take that. You can also explore Playwright testing for web UI testing. So you can explore the documentation, the Discord, and the Twitter for Playwright. And yeah,